Hey everyone, Justin here, Voices for Voices. It's a pleasure for us to come into your home, into your earbuds. You're watching, listening in the United States or any one of the 90 countries, 900 cities across the world. We understand we have um, a lot of new viewers, listeners, so we want to welcome you. It's a pleasure to have you with us, and thank you for the download and the watch and the listen. We appreciate that. So we're going to cut to the chase. This episode is titled, um, not only is it episode 352, but we are actually going to dub this particular episode Axe and Sophia Waters. So I'm going to let our guest uh, get ready, set, go.
And thank you, Justin. So you guys all know me as David Solomon. And today I wanted to go over some really interesting facts because it's the anniversary of uh of when I became a Christian fantasy author. So I thought it was appropriate to to go over this. So many of you know that I survived human trafficking at the hands of Bryan Davis and other individuals, allegedly, for purposes, saying that. And here's the deal. In 2011, on this date, I wrote a story called AX because God told me to do it. And I was going to a youth group at the time in Oregon City. And Bryan Davis called my youth pastor up and had a 5 hour conversation about my well being. And, and then everything changed in my church. Well, I wrote this, and um, the next day, Bryan Davis just happened to be in our town. So my mom and I visited him and tried to figure out why he had a 5 hour conversation with my youth pastor. So AX is a Christian fantasy story about Saul who became Paul. Only Saul was a vampire in this fantasy world, modern day, which is a soul sucker. He sucks souls, or a soul taker. And then he became a soul saver. So then he saved souls. And AX was a parallel to the Bible, like Veggie Tales for a supernatural crowd. When I met Bryan in 2011 on October the 26th at 5:30 p.m., we also discussed another idea, and that was Sophia Waters, because he, for some odd reason, was fascinated with what I was writing these days. Because I used to write for him, literally. So Susie, his wife, sat down with me. And she loved the idea of Sophia Waters being this girl who uses her siren voice to open portals, and it's tied to the Tower of Babel. And Bryan loved it too. In fact, Bryan and I brainstormed a book idea called Superheroes Wanted by James Art Bill and Bryan Davis. We'll get to that in a moment. So Bryan picked my brain because I wrote for him before, and my mom didn't appreciate him reaching out to my youth pastor. Um, that would be an understatement. And he said, "So, what are your ideas for a superhero book, David?" Now, at the time, I wasn't known as David, I was known as Jeremiah. To confuse you, my mom, because of my talent as a prodigy, hid my real name from people. And then I had a dad who blew up our home, who was in and out of prison. And so my mom was terrified of him for good reason. He stalked the living heck out of her. So I was known as Jeremiah Paul Song. And Bryan knew me as Jeremiah, not David or Solomon, if you will. I remember that day almost like it was yesterday. It was very scary, where Bryan, he wanted to know my ideas, and my mom said, "Well, why did you talk to his youth pastor?" And Bryan goes, "I was just checking in on him." And she goes, "There's no need. Everything's fine. What are you doing here?" And he goes, "You moved. You didn't tell me." So I get that. My best friend, who also uh, was like me and very talented, autistic, um, has Tret, if you will. They they also, if you will, were manipulated by Mr. Davis in many ways. And when we started talking about books, when we started talking about me doing his books and him wanting my mom to screenplay one of his books, and my mom said, "It's creepy that you contacted his youth pastor after we left a situation." And we did. Very intense situation. And we moved to Oregon City because of it. And, it wasn't okay. So he got me outside and we talked for about 3 hours, maybe two, about ideas. He wanted to pick my brain. I was autistic and naive. My mom talked to Susie and Amanda, not to be confused with my wife, Amanda Davis, who at the time was on tour with her father because she came out with a dystopian book, um, which actually, honestly, people is very good and doesn't have all this crap in it. So you should read it. It's under Amanda L. Davis if anybody ever wants to pick it up. Um, but nevertheless, it was really hard that day after he talked to me for those hours because then he wanted to meet me again the next day, and my mom found it creepy, but we did it anyway. And this was in Newburgh this time. And I had a friend that went to the Newburgh school there. And so we met up as a family and we talked to Bryan for 4 hours, maybe five. And he just picked my brain about all my writing. And we actually created with his daughter Starlighter, which technically was created a little bit before, but then he started putting everything together to make everything fit in the narrative. And at that point, it was third Starlighter that we were plotting. And then he wanted to do the superhero series. And then the Children of the Bard, I was doing Legos for him. You can look it up, of Dragons in Our Midst, because I'm really good at what I do. And it was his words. So then Sophia Waters, he said that would be a really cool story. And, you know, it could fit in well with Dragons in Our Midst, the story world. And pretty soon, Bryan messaged me on Facebook and started pursuing the idea of these Chinese dragons. Um, there were purple dragons. There was a folklore that he was obsessed with that I posted on Mythical Creatures after I was trafficked. Now we'll fast forward that he kept private messaging me about. He wanted to know information on it. It's a purple dragon folklore. And he and I went back and forth. Even after trafficking me, he would not leave me alone. And then he kept asking me about Sophia Waters and this idea actually works and that idea doesn't. And um, it was a whole mess. And after being trafficked, I was even more of a mess. My mom, you got to understand, my mom was helping him write a screenplay based on Starlighter, which I have, by the way, Mr. Davis, if you're listening, the original documents for that screenplay, if you would like to see them. Oh, and they are notarized by my mom to you. The name of that story is called Blood Brothers, based on Masters and Slayers and Starlighter. And it's about Jason Masters and Adrian, and they're two brothers. And the story is about how this girl has gone missing because dragons are taking girls, right? And they're enslaving them and breeding them on another planet. But that's folklore and legend. And Adrian's brother Frederick has also gone missing trying to find these girls. Isn't this like sounding familiar, people? So they're taken to the cattle camp, which is where these dragons, for all intents and purposes, sex traffic these children. A cattle camp that a boy gets away from. I'll let your mind wonder. So, this story is about human trafficking. And before I was trafficked, my mom was a big supporter of making people aware. So we did a cartoon screenplay for Mr. Bryan Davis with 3 months to live for her. Okay. So then I got trafficked, and we know that part. It boggles the mind why, after that, Bryan did not let go and was obsessed with mythical creatures around the world and kept private messaging. I have those messages, by the way, Mr. Davis. I really do. And my Facebook got hacked through that too. My old Facebook, Solomon O. Stone, which is why I have Axe up there. Um, Axe was going to be published. Bryan stood in the way of it being published, and that was when the car accidents started in Oregon City. For 2 years. They would start. Um, After that, I started doing my own thing with mythical and distancing myself from people like Bryan, who kept hurting me and my mom and other people. I looked up to Bryan Davis as a mentor and a father figure, and I was groomed since the age of 11, in his words, because he met me at 11, because I was a prodigy. And it is the biggest mistake I made, letting that man get close to me or my mom. Big mistake. That's why I wrote the film Sound of Freedom. It's why he wrote the film Scent of Her Soul. I'm not here to wage war on Bryan or Scott or Realm or anyone. I just want people held accountable for what they did in the Christian world, which makes it worse. And I'm going to resurrect the story. And I'm also going to resurrect that screenplay for Starlighter. And I'm going to put it out that my mom was forced to write that for Bryan. And Sound of Freedom, that was our baby. That was that was mom and me and a few other people. It's just so sad that we're here in this moment. Someone that loves God and yet can be so dark and cruel and hates his children, God's children. Here's a man who writes about dragons in our midst. You know, book one was amazing. Book two was really good. Book three, book four. I truly believe that God chose this man to write. But then I think greed and power And I stand by that, came to Bryan somewhere in there. He changed. You know, I prayed for Bryan all my life, actually. Every day I get up and I pray for Bryan Davis. So funny. I pray for my trafficker. I'm such an evil person. But I don't pray because I want to be around him. I pray that he A, turns himself in, B, repents, and C, gets caught somehow. But I do pray for his family. But I do not pray that he dies. I don't think he can say the same. I've been called every name in the book today. I even had someone stab me with a knife today. I'm fine. I'll get over it. It was a little wound, but still happened. It was a scary moment. People with all this hate. This is the America we live in. We let monsters like this, dragons like this, roam free. This man should have been locked up 14 years ago when he talks about talking to minor children about sex, porn, and cutting behind their parents' backs on the Harvest interview. We would not be here today. I would not have gotten taken. The other children would not have gotten taken. So that's the story of AX and Sophia Waters. He wanted those stories for himself. And he wanted me to make the children of the bard, Sela and Joran, um, from Children of the Bard. It was chapter one. It was every other chapter they would have a chapter. So there's Bonnie in the prologue, and then we flash back to the second Eden, and it would be their story, and then it would be Bonnie's story, and then it would be present, which is Matt and Lauren, the children of Billy and Bonnie, which is how we wrote it. Now that sequence continued in book two a little bit, but it triggered a new character, and he brought Joan of Arc in book two towards the end, along with the prostitute for book three. He brought everything in. So my point is, me and my mom were really working for him, and I became a better Christian writer because I learned from him. But I did not let that define who I am today. So let me be hated for setting the standard on what true Christian fantasy should be. And that is something like mythical creatures around the world, where a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old can pick up a book and not worry about little girls being raped by dragons in a kid's book, nevertheless. I mean, it just boggles the mind how we get here. And we say, oh, it's fantasy, until that fantasy becomes a reality. And that reality happened to me, literally. So AX, I will be resurrecting. because it's a worthy story to be told that could save someone's life and lead them to Christ. And Sophia Waters, I will also be resurrecting because that's a worthy story too. But it breaks my heart that Bryan, out of all people, just will not let this go. You know, Bryan has talked to everybody but me now, literally. Targeted everybody but me now. He's literally had everybody else harass me. But he won't actually be not a coward and actually have a conversation to me. He has to do it in the shadows or have other people do it. And today was the last straw. AX is the story that my mom was very fond of. It's a redemption story about a vampire who changes and doesn't become a vampire anymore. God changes him. It's a very powerful and profound story. So that's the story of Sophia Waters and Acts. It's painful to imagine that was 12 years ago. And here we are now. And now, you know, we're doing sacred scales and dragons of Camelot. We haven't learned our lesson. You know, in the new book, we describe a minor child not wearing undergarments. It's kind of a weird detail. The character looked under the girl. So curious. So that's for ages what, 8 and up, I think, or 7 and up, one or the other. It's little innuendos like that that really piss me off. So, you know, that's where I'm at
Well,
tonight.
that, yeah, thanks for sharing. I know it's deeply uh, just transparent into your heart, into your soul. Uh, and before we end this particular episode, we want to thank our guest, David Salmon, for coming forward, being a voice, not just for himself, but so many others, regardless of all the hate, regardless of everything. Uh, we experience that as well here at Voices for Voices. We have people that intervene, people that, uh, I don't know. And so I want to give a big shout out to all the rock star attorneys and lawyers out there. I know it's not an easy profession. Uh, a lot of emotions can come come up through that line of work. So I want to give a shout out to those rock star attorneys who are following the law, who are listening to their clients, not going behind the backs of their clients, not reaching out to individuals or individual on the opposing side. Uh, and so we're not giving a shout out to those people. Those people, in our estimation, in good faith, are not attorneys. They have no business anywhere near a legal document, a courtroom, a deposition room, none whatsoever. And and so wanted to take this opportunity again to say thank you to all the rock star attorneys who day in, day out deal with just some just tough topics, tough experiences, and that can definitely eat into uh, kind of that personal life of those rock star attorneys. Uh, and I want to say thank you for those rock star attorneys because it is people like you who keep the American justice system, the wheels of justice uh, turning, and we want to say thank you. And however, we want to be sure to, if you're experiencing any type of activity from an attorney that you have or somebody that you know has, don't be don't be shy about it. Gonna come on our show. You have a voice just like I do, just like David does, just like our other guests do. Uh, so let us know because we want a world where people are held accountable, and that includes people posing like attorneys, posing like they are representing you, or I, hypothetically, and they're really not. They are doing shady business, just to call it, um, just to keep it, just to keep it, children appropriate. And, and we do pray for those attorneys who may, after watching and listening to this episode or any of the other 351 episodes in our catalog, that your heart does change, that you actually want to uphold the rule of law, that you really want to represent your clients and not the opposing side, that you want to represent and do what your clients want, not spending hours on the phone with individuals that have no business having conversations with an attorney. Uh, and so for those, we pray for you. We hope that uh, that again, we're all sinners. So we pray for ourselves and we pray for you. If you are one of those attorneys, we would pray for all attorneys, but especially those that are making decisions outside the purview of what they should be doing, and especially that attorney-client privilege. That's one of the hallmarks that we're supposed to be able to put our hat on, hang our hat on. And so don't be afraid to reach out to your bar association and report those attorneys. So thanks, David Solomon, for this episode. Please be a voice for you or somebody in need and celebrate all the voices and all of us. We'll see you next time.